experience on football kind of soured me. If I had to pick a team, it would be the Vikings because I've always been partial to them. My family is from Minnesota. I'm of Norwegian descent, so yeah, I'm kind of I've always been a Vikings fan. I just fell out of love with football. I'm kind of more into hockey now than anything, and I'm a big fan of the Bruins. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Well, if we're doing battle again, then we're big Ranger fans here in Long Island, but it's okay.
Oh, all right. I mean, I hear you. I hear you.
So you said you started wrestling right out of in 2015. Now, if you've only been wrestling less than 3 years, is that fair to say? About 2.5 years?
Yeah, less than 3 years. So I graduated early in 2015 from UMass. I graduated in December.
So, in that span, if I'm sure people go to the cage match and they see where you've wrestled and whatnot, look at your matches. You have been you wrestle for Evolve, you wrestle for Beyond Wrestling, you did the Future of Honor for Ring of Honor. What do you attribute? Such an enormous amount of growth in that 2.5 years. You think that's attributed to your athletic background, playing D1, understanding the competitive nature and understanding how to train? Because that for you to be able to do that in 2.5 years, it's amazing.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I attribute it to, and I don't really want to put myself over or anything like that. I do work really hard,
Dude, but listen, take credit where credit is due, man. Absolutely.
What I really think, what really kicked it off for me was I was a really big guy in a world where there's not that many big dudes going. Brian Fury is, you have to look him up. He trained Sasha Banks, Biff Busick, Tommaso Ciampa, and trainer Brian Fury. If no down to England, Massachusetts, Northeast area, Brian Fury had a hand in making completely, and I think went a lot longer than pretty much anything for me was having Brian Fury put the stamp of approval on me, and being in his lineage. And then once I had those opportunities, I kind of capitalized on it. I can remember the first 2 times where my career really jumped to the next level was I was really wrestling at places where I wasn't making much money and no one was really in the crowd. And then at Limitless Wrestling in Maine, I had a match with Donovan Dijak. And to me, Donovan Dijak, I've done a million interviews, and every single one I've put him over as one of the best wrestlers on the planet. And he is Dominic Dijakovic. Sorry, I'm bouncing back and forth between his names. That's kind of how I know him as. But Dijak really, me and him we went balls to the wall. New Year's Eve 2017. Me and Keith Lee had another one of those matches where it kind of just put everyone on notice. Keith is another one of those guys who's one of the best on the planet. And after that, I kind of just would get the ball in my court and I'd have to capitalize. And luckily enough, I've kind of capitalized on everything,
Well, those were great matches. To me, the one that stuck out this year was you and the Luchasaurus at Beyond Wrestling. It's Alive. If you haven't seen it yet, that match is to be as big as you are and as athletic as you are, and to be able to wrestle that pace in such a sprint of a match. How did you develop your style, and is there anybody that you patterned it after?
That's another, man. I kind of just take I just take bits and pieces of everyone that I like and just throw them all into my type of stew, and I just really go and do what I do. But as far as cardio, I mean, to keep up that type of pace, I've never really gotten blown up in a match, and I've done some long ones, I've done some quick, fast ones, and that's really just the work that Brian Fury makes us do at the New England Pro Wrestling Academy, and my training at the gym and everything, and how well I eat and everything like that. But as far as my style, I really took a lot from Bruiser Brody. I think he's the man. Like it's just a crying shame that he's not involved in wrestling. You know, like I think that what happened is so tragic, and like listening to all the people who knew him so well talk about him, like if he was in pro wrestling today still, I think pro wrestling as a whole would be completely different. So Brody was a big one for me when I was like learning how to perform early on. Barry Windham was another one, a fast, big dude, in great shape and just a great baby face. Dijak, of course. Dijak was my idol for so long. And, a couple other people, but I've kind of working with Gabe at Evolve has really transformed me into a guy doing moves, into a guy who is doing things for a reason, if that makes sense. That's such a old school grizzled vet type of thing to say, is you don't need to do the moves, you just do things for a purpose and get the most out of it. But it doesn't really click with you until you kind of really realize it in front of a crowd. And Gabe was, I think, that guy who transformed me, and I mean made me work more of a TV style than a independent, pop the boys type of wrestling, and that's kind of where my wrestling has evolved to in the last couple of months. No pun intended with evolve, but yeah, that's kind of how my style's progressed.
To tell more of a story, like you're saying, and have the everything in the match mean something. I think that's great, and I think you could absolutely see it in your matches. And speaking of Gabe, speaking of Evolve, I know you've had some big matches in your career, like you said, Donovan Dijak, Keith Lee. Evolve 119 next weekend. It's you and Austin Theory versus Johnny Gargano and AR Fox in an Icons versus the New Generation match. Is this match the biggest match in your career?
Honestly, yeah, I think it's the biggest match in my career. And I'm saying that because it'll probably bring the most new fans to me. And I think that is probably the biggest thing, the most important thing when you're building your brand and trying to climb the ladder of pro wrestling, is getting new fans, new exposure, and introducing new people to who you are. So in that sense, yeah, it's the biggest, most important match of my career. The very good thing is that I've had a lot of tag team matches now. If this was last year, it'd probably be a little rougher for me and I'd be a little bit more nervous, but I've had a lot of tag team matches, a lot of multi-man stuff, and me and Fox have had so many good matches together, and we just have that undeniable type of chemistry where we can do some of the craziest stuff you'll ever see. And it's probably the most important, biggest match of my career, but it's also one of the matches that I'm not really too nervous about. I'm really excited to get it, to do it, to perform, and to get it over with, more than anxious and nervous, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you're ready to go out there and enjoy yourself. When you look at the four guys in that match, I don't think I've ever seen a bad match from anybody. So I am looking forward to that. And the next night, if you go to the WWN website, they have you versus Angelo Dawkins in what they're calling an Ultimate Haas fight. What can we expect, and are you going to break the ring?
Oh man, every time it's a Haas fight, that's like my number one goal, is to just destroy the ring. And so yeah, I'm really gonna try my best to do it. But I mean, Dawkins is a beast, man. Like, people don't understand it. If you haven't seen Dawkins, buy the Club WWN, get that WWN subscription, and you need to watch his matches. Watch him on WWE Network. You need to see how strong he is. He's just like a real life bad dude who can throw you around, and that's
he moves
something
fast too. He's a big dude, like you said, but he moves fast.
He's a freak. He's been with the WWE for as long as he has for a good reason. He is a beast, and I've never really wrestled a dude like that where he's so legit and such a bad dude. So it's gonna be a lot of fun. He can go. I don't see this one letting up at all. We're gonna destroy each other and try and just steal the show.
Now, you spoke about Gabe and, how he's helped you. And you have, next weekend you have Evolve 119 and Evolve 120 back-to-back, and you have guys from NXT in both shows. Do you think it's any coincidence, and I know you don't like to put yourself over, but do you think it's any coincidence that you're in matches both nights with guys from NXT?
I've spoke to Gabe a lot about this, and, it's not a coincidence. You earn what you get when you work with Gabe. And I've always, and this is one thing that I can attribute to coming from football and having such a long football background, is I really try and be a good employee, and I really try and put the company first, and I've understood everything that he wants, and I try and get it done the best of my ability. Thankfully, I've capitalized, and when the ball is in my court, I've never dropped it, knock on wood. And I understand how important Evolve is to him, and hopefully he understands how important Evolve is to me. I would love to be the flag bearer of Evolve for the next 10 years, if that's possible. But like I said, everything is earned in Evolve. And there are a bunch of dudes who've been in there with NXT guys, and we have all earned it. I would wholeheartedly think that this is one of, if not the best Evolve rosters that we have, and that Evolve's ever had. Me, Darby, Theory, Drake, Henry. It's something that's worth more than $9.99 a month, and this isn't to put over the subscription Club WWN or anything, but it's really a shame if you aren't watching this every single Evolve weekend. It's the best thing that's going around right now, honestly.
And they do have plenty of content on there, so for $9.99, you're right, you do get your money's worth. Speaking of Evolve, you said right now it's probably, they've had big names Evolve has throughout, since they started, but they haven't had such a deep roster like they do right now. What do you think is the future of Evolve? The company seems to be growing exponentially, and they have a great working relationship with WWE and NXT. Do you see Evolve kind of maybe growing to a larger scale in this next year, or are they going to kind of just stick with what they're doing and keep pumping out consistent shows?
The future, it's always it goes with its ebbs and flows of pro wrestling, and right now, wrestling's in such a weird state where there's so much money being thrown around and so many people getting signing these contracts and everything. And it's great for the boys and it's great for the products of pro wrestling, but I really think the future of Evolve is to build these shows. And every single show, if you look for the past 6-7 months, it's been a type of thing where the shows keep growing and they keep building, and I think that it's going to get to the point where there's going to be some stuff that people I don't think would expect. I don't want to say anything and jinx it, but everyone understands who our working relationship is with and where we're going, and I think the sky is the limit with Evolve.
They just announced. I know you said you don't want to, spoil anything, but they just announced Adam Cole is going to be wrestling in, I think, February in Joppa, Maryland. So the amount of talent, if the WWE didn't believe in Evolve, they wouldn't be sending these huge names on these shows to wrestle, phenomenal performers like yourself.